Well, good morning. I'm Keith Hayes. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the Black Horse in Lewis, broadcasting to Lewis, but also to the rest of the world. Oh, what an audience. Well, part of the world. Lovely day out there, and it's going to get better. About lunchtime, we're going to have a cloudless sky. It's going to go back to what it was a couple of days ago, a nice, clear sunshine beaming through this little old earth of ours, where we've got more troubles than you can shake a stick at. But we'll get to that in a minute. What have we got on for you today? Well, we've got Susie in about 15 minutes. Then we've got Philip Meredith, along with John Prideaux, chat some more about artificial intelligence, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we've got Stuart Dolby with Tales of Art. Oh, hang on. I'm not alone this morning. The Chief of Staff is here, issuing instructions. What was that, Chief?
Nothing. I was just sharing your agenda today.
And then at 10:30, I'm going to scoot, literally, off to the doctor. And getting an appointment is like gold dust, so I can't afford to say nay. So I shall whistle through the door very fast. The chief has said that he'll look after the bits and bobs once I'm gone. And Stuart will undoubtedly be disappearing in a cloud of dust. So quite an exciting morning, all in all. And it has been for the first 2 days of this week. It's been much busier than I anticipated. And I've gone home exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. Reached for the gin and tonic only to find that I've got no gin. Which reminds me of a story of the chief photographer of the Belfast Telegraph, who once on a holiday in Thailand went on a river cruise and with a buddy said they bet whether in fact they could get a gin and tonic. And the photographer said, I'm going to order a cork gin, and I bet that they don't have that. Anyway, the lady came along and they ordered a cork dry gin and tonic. She went away and came back, and he grinned at his friend and said, there. And she said, I'm terribly sorry, sir, we have no tonic. That cork dry gin gets everywhere. Never mind. Memories of the past. And he was some character, that chief photographer. Got everywhere. Got his finger into every pie and got some pretty great stuff. And actually, I got to know the photographers very well in my tenure in Belfast. They were quite an interesting lot, all in all. I'll tell you about them sometime. But anyway, in the meantime, let us just get the official weather, because it's going to reach 18 degrees today. and it's going to be sunny and a gentle breeze. No rain whatsoever, none. And at 1 o'clock, we can expect the clouds to sweep away, and they will disappear for the rest of the day. It'll still be sunny at 7 o'clock tonight. Is that going to follow through the rest of the week? Thursday? Well, still sunny, but some cloud. And a degree cooler, 17. Friday, exactly the same. Saturday, exactly the same, except we can expect a wee bit of rain. And Sunday, same again, with a spot of rain. But today, sunny and a gentle breeze. Oh, ho, ho. I'm feeling a bit rocky on my feet, but I expect the doctor will fix that. I don't think that it's a female doctor, so I can't hold hands. But, I went to, this was 20 years ago now, but I went for an operation at the Nuffield on a private contract, paid for, I may say, by the Americans who I was working for at the time. And I got into the theatre, and the nurse held my hand, and afterwards she held it right throughout the operation, and it was a local anaesthetic, so I was awake the whole time. And she was a very good-looking chick too, and afterwards she said, "Thank you so much." She said, "This was my first time and I was very nervous. You holding my hand gave me reassurance." I thought she was reassuring me. And I wasn't going to get done on the operating table. There you are. That's how life pans out, isn't it? It is indeed. Okay. Now, before Susie gets here with us, let me take you through the news headlines. The Daily Telegraph. Tories tell police bring back stop and search. In fact, for once, Rishi Sunak is moving a bit more to the right with a number of things that he's put up today. And I think somebody has said is, look, you've got to put distance between you and Keir Starmer. And particularly Keir Starmer's deputy, who is a good old dogma Labour and will bring back all the failed policies of the past. They could do so well if only they would learn a lesson, but they won't. They are completely taken up with their left-wing principles. Right. A fresh portrait of King Charles features on a number of Wednesday's front pages, including the Daily Telegraph. The paper also notes Manchester City have one hand on retaining their Premier League crown after seeing off Spurs in North London on Tuesday. Also on the front of the Telegraph, Government Minister Chris Philp tells the paper stop and search is a vital tool in taking knives off the streets, but warns it is not used nearly enough by police. Well, there's not much time left, but there's going to be a clash between the government and police, who have moved particularly to the left. The Times. Don't teach pupils about gender ID, schools told. Another movement to the right. This is all a bunch of left-wing woke nonsense anyway. The Times also features a story about the school pupils reportedly not being taught about gender ID before the age of 13. The paper reports guidance issued by the government will explicitly tell schools to avoid proactively teaching children about gender identity. A sidebar story carries an investigation by the broadsheet, which cites leaked records as identifying more than 100 British convicts, fugitives, and bankrupts who have secretly invested millions in the United Arab Emirates. Ooh-hoo-hoo. The Daily Mail, sex education to be banned for under nines and no more gender dogma. It features in red on the front of Wednesday's Daily Mail is the first official portrait of King Charles. It was commissioned by the Drapers Company in 2020 ahead of the celebration of the then Prince of Wales 50 years as a member in 2022. The tabloid's lead story, I suppose that means a member of the Drapers Company. Oh, the chief has brought the paper so we can get it from the horse's mouth. The tabloid's lead story says government ministers are set to unveil a ban on schools teaching sex education to children aged under 9. Education Secretary Gillian Keegan is due to speak about the plans on Wednesday. That's today, the paper says. The Daily Express, fighting chance migration will fall to 150,000 a year. The King's new portrait makes an appearance on the front of Wednesday's Daily Express, as does Nigel Farage. As the tabloid reports, Rishi Sunak is considering a general election on the 14th of November to stop Nigel Farage wreaking havoc on the Tories' campaign. The paper also touches on Nottingham's triple killer Valdo Calacone's sentence being ruled as not unduly lenient following a review at the Royal Court of Justice in central London. The lead story reports there is a fighting chance net migration will fall to 150,000, which the paper says would give Rishi Sunak a crucial boost. Ooh, the Eye. New weight loss jab, Gold Rush, offers obesity hope to millions. New weight loss jab, Gold Rush is the headline on Wednesday's newspaper, as it leads with a new study which reports obesity injections could cut the risk of heart attacks and strokes in people, even if they fail to lose much weight. Elsewhere, the paper quotes former NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen, who urges the alliance to call Russian President Vladimir Putin, call his bluff, and use weapons based in Poland and Romania to shoot down Russian missiles. Well, there we go. More confrontation. The Mirror. Mummy's a legend, I'm a mess. Britain's Got Talent presenter Ant McPartlin has become a father for the very first time after his wife, Anne-Marie, gave birth to their bundle of joy. The Daily Mirror, the way celebrity stories, my little treasure, bundle of joy. The Daily Mirror's headline says, the Geordie is a mess, citing an Instagram post by the celebrity. Elsewhere, according to the paper, Coronation Street star Beverly Callard is under investigation after her acting firm failed to settle a £100,000 tax bill. A statement issued by the spokesman said, once the legal dispute is resolved, she will set the record straight. Oh dear. The Guardian. US warns Georgia not to side with Russia against the West. A dominant photo of American actress and writer Greta Gerwig features on the front of Wednesday's Guardian as this year's jury president arrived at the Cannes Film Festival's jury photo call on Tuesday. Also catching the eye is the paper's tribute to Alice Munro, the first Canadian to win the Nobel Literature Prize, who died aged 92. She won the award in 2013 with a citation praising her mastery of the contemporary short story. The lead story focuses on the United States, says it will reassure ties with Georgia after the government in Tbilisi pushed through a law banning what it called foreign influence. Now, I find this interesting because one of my good friends and trainees is Sophie Shevardnadze, the granddaughter of Edward Shevardnadze, the former president of Georgia. And Sophie told me that at the time of the first revolution, when Edward was turfed out of Georgia, that she remembers as a little girl going through the back door to the helicopters to get them away as the mob came through the front door. And it was really frightening, even at that age, she said. So I hope, Sophie, you're not back in Georgia and they're going to go through all this again. Financial Times, Anglo reveals a breakup plan to thwart BHP takeover. The Financial Times follows up with another splash on mining titan Anglo American after it announced plans to sell off the world's long dominant diamond supplier, De Beers, with analysts pointing to pressure from cheaper lab-grown stones and volatile consumer demand. The paper says this is being done to thwart a takeover from Australian rival BHP. India's Narendra Modi is pictured launching his election candidacy in the northern city of Varanasi. The Metro, UK's record 3 million food parcels. The splash story on Wednesday's Metro is a report by the food bank network Trussell Trust, which says the number of emergency food parcels handed out across the UK in a single year has reached its highest level at more than 3 million. Elsewhere, the paper features celebrities gracing the Cannes Film Festival, and the yellow masthead at the top carries more news from France, touching on the huge manhunt after 2 prison officers were killed and 3 seriously injured when their van was ambushed in Normandy. Oh, Harry, happening in your backyard. And the Daily Star, the Boggerel Bodgers says, Botty Boffin reveals we're using the Lavi all wrong. Oh, never mind. That's the Star for you. It always gives you a little smile in the morning when the rest of the world is. I like this fizzy water, but I wish it had got a spot of gin in it. Oh, dear, dear, dear. But when the chief's here, I don't dare go behind the bar and get a nip. No. That would be certainly non-you. Okay, now, one of the things coming up at 9 o'clock is our usual bi-monthly look at artificial intelligence with our expert, John Prideaux. And he points out the benefits as well as the downside. And people are joining his urge for caution as artificial intelligence begins to grip everything to do with our society. And those are things which we need to watch very carefully. I expect Philip is lurking somewhere, but since he's coming on at 9 o'clock, I doubt if we'll see him before then, apart from which he's a dutiful husband and takes his wife to work. I wish I could take my wife to work. It's much better than me coming to work, but unfortunately she went on to pastures green up there in 2013. And so I must confess, is getting used to being without her. Is 10 years on is still difficult. Still difficult to say the least. However, we must not dwell on the bad things from the past, but look at the good things and put them in perspective, which we try very hard to do on Mirador Television. We try to be as positive as we can be in a world that seems to have lost control of itself. And I've been to Georgia, and I rather liked it, and I thought that it was one of those places that I thought of as a civilized place. But it is always Stalin was Georgian, and many of Russia's leaders have been Georgian, and of course they gave rise to the famous Cossack cavalry and the Don Cossacks display team that went around the world when I was a boy to various agricultural shows, displaying their expertise, jumping on and off a moving horse. An interesting place, to say the least. Let's see. Messages come through, and they don't hang about long enough for me to read them. And I most certainly am not going to pause from talking to you to read them. So perhaps we might get a bit of a bit of a pause a little later. But for the moment, it's all go. It's all go, and the children are going to school, and the Jobsworths are going to work at the county hall, which is just around the corner from us. I'm looking at the plot where the king's cousin hid out, or was it cousin or brother? I'm not sure of my history there, but nonetheless, he hid out the Battle of Lewes, which is 1264, and that little plot of land is still there. Now the chief is shouting out. He came in this morning. Sit there, he said, and he said it in such a stentorian voice, he scared the hell out of me. So I sat here, and I'm still sitting here, frightened to move. What did you say, Chief?
It was the King's General called in the windmill over there, not his cousin.
No, not his cousin, the King's General. Right, there you go, you see. I thought I knew it all, but the Chief of Staff is a man of wisdom and of knowledge. So he listens to me, and then it gives me the facts after I've uttered the nonsense. Oh, well, what a team. What a team. Anyway, he is preparing the pub for a busy day. And it is interesting that the chat on Mirador for the last couple of days has been what makes a pub as opposed to a restaurant that claims to be a pub. And I keep saying that the Black Horse is a classic pub. It is a pub first and foremost. It has all sorts of teams and games and quiz nights and so on and so forth for the average punter. You come in, you can go to the bar, you can order a drink, but it does food as well. Now, that is a pub that does food, as opposed to some pubs which have turned themselves into restaurants, and they actually discourage you from just having a drink. And it's a great pity, because they've got it the right way around. Being a decent restaurant calls for a lot of expertise in the restaurant industry. Being a decent pub calls for a lot of expertise in the pub industry. And this pub has certainly got it. It doesn't try to pretend to be a restaurant. but it does recognize the fact that people come in here for food. And we had a minor disaster in as much as the chef was taken ill on the weekend. So there was no Sunday lunch. I denied my Sunday lunch. Mind you, the chief did say that he would get me a table at the King's Head if I wanted it. But even with the scooter, that's just a bit far to go. So I opted to stay at home and grabbed a little bit here and a little bit there, which is what is recommended for people who are ill the way that I'm ill. Look me in the eye. You can't tell that I'm ill, can you? Wait until you see me walk, or not walk, as the case may be. Then you can tell. But the chief has picked me up several times now off the floor of the pub, and not because I've been drinking. That's the bit that sticks in my craw. Is I fall over, and it's not because I've had too much alcohol. I mean, you'd think at least I'd have some sort of reward for my falling, wouldn't you? No, not a bit of it. Now, I'm going to send an invitation again to Susie because it's possible that she is up in Tunbridge, where her daughter has been taking her GCSEs. Is it GCSEs? Yes. And actually, I've never been to Tunbridge, but I know that it is a lovely little place, and very historic. As indeed is its bigger sister nearby, Tunbridge Wells. So Susie is able to go up to Tunbridge on a daily basis at the moment until the school year ends, which is not too far away now. We're nudging towards the major holiday, the summer holidays, when the schools virtually close down. Anyway, we'll be off to Kent a little later with Stuart Dolby. Conversations with Stuart, who is going to take a look at some pretty exciting art news. Stuart is a donor to galleries in Lewes, very supportive of the arts, so he'll be in his element. Although last week was a fascinating interview with his former journalist colleague, and who was in Vietnam with him, but they were talking about Hong Kong and the experiences once the takeover took place, and the fact that the Chinese haven't exactly lived up to their promises. But then who expected them to? And nobody gets excited about the Chinese not really fulfilling their promises. They do get excited about us not fulfilling. Still, there we go. I am not getting much joy out of Susie this morning. I'll tell you what we're going to do. What's the time? 8:28. No, that's a bit dangerous. A bit dangerous to actually play episode 8, the final episode of the bloody past of a tiny town. There's a bing, bing, bing. Let's see who's decided to join us this morning. It's Susie there. Now, I have to say that this picture does not do her tan.
I'm sorry I'm late.
Good morning. Where are you, in Tunbridge?
Good morning, Keith. Sorry I'm late joining the show. My own technical problems that my phone didn't have any charge on it.
Oh dear. Well, there you are now. I was just telling people that the picture does not do your tan justice, because in real life you are as brown as a berry, absolutely tanned. So how are you this morning, darling?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm just sat in the car with Teddy.
All
There's
right.
Teddy looking out the window.
You dropped your daughter off?
I have. She's got her history GCSE today, and so I'm just sat in the car park at Haysden Country Park again, and
Right.
joining the show.
And Teddy, who is Susie's little dog, is he enjoying a run around? Oh, there he is. Yes.
He will be soon. It was far too noisy the other day, so I shall join you in the car, and then we'll go and have.
Oh, we lost you. Never mind. There we go. You're back again. Yeah, that's good. So it was too noisy for Teddy to get out and go into the park.
Well, when I was with you the other day, there was a lot of train noise and the A21, and I couldn't really hear. So I thought I'd talk to you from my car, and then we'll go and have a run around afterwards.
All right. Yeah, well done. You say you told me that he doesn't like being very far away from you.
Nope, as you can see, attached at the umbilical cord.
It's a lovely little dog. He's very, very lively, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, he's very
Hello.
lively, and I say if he's always on my knee or attached to me, he's happy.
Ah, right. Oh, well, I mean, it's nice to have a pet that is that devoted.
Yeah, but it does get annoying sometimes when you're trying to do stuff and he's just under your feet.
Now, Susie, you're not just a pretty face, because you've got a degree, you row, you do all sorts of exciting and interesting things. What do you make of Rishi Sunak's declaration that sex education is now, we're not going to have these gender issues in schools anymore? A welcome move or not? You didn't hear me. Yeah, you've gone. We're not hearing you at all, Susie.
I'm going to have to confess that I'm not up to date with news, because I'm in GCSE sort of drop off mode. So could you just sort of give me a summary of what the?
Yes, in fact, I will read to you from one of the.
Can you give me a summary of what the comment was? Just because I'm in the middle of GCSE revision.
Right. Okay. Let me find the story. It is, of course, is when you want it, is it never there. Here we go in the Mail. Sex education to be banned for under 9s and no more gender dogma is the headline. Government ministers are set to unveil a ban on schools teaching sex education to children aged under 9. Education Secretary Gillian Keegan is due to speak about the plans today, the paper says.
Right. I think this is a very difficult one, because I was very much against sex education I would think I was probably at secondary school. I just think children ought to be children. And I guess that they want to make them aware because of paedophiles and the dangers of the internet, about the risks online. But I do think there's just a point of just being a child and having fun and not having the pressures of the world, or being made to be aware of sex and sexuality and gender. I mean, I just remember running around with all my friends, and they were just my friends. They weren't black, they weren't Asian, they weren't lesbians, they weren't homosexuals. They were just my friends.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even aware of homosexuality till probably I was at university. So, that's quite a long time. And I was quite happy. I was quite blissfully happy and unaware. And I think it's become too far the other way, where it's become such an issue now that it is an issue in itself. But how you backtrack from that's the dangerous part, because now it's already in motion. I mean, I think for example, my sister's been teaching her daughter about her parts and the names and the different labels at the age of 3 or 4, and I didn't agree with that.
Wow.
I just
No.
didn't agree with it. But she seems to think that's okay.
Yeah.
So it's a different era. But for me, I just grew up quite happy, just being me, without any labels.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how you would
I
even
was
come
laughing.
backtrack.
Yeah, I was laughing the other day because there was an item on pornography and so on and so forth, which is got a real hold because of the internet. But I can remember when I was about 14, is that we would go into W.H. Smith's and try to find something to look at. The I Spy series of books were very popular then, but really we were in there to see a magazine called Health and Efficiency, which was a nudist magazine. And that's about as naughty as we got.
It was the top shelf, wasn't it?
Yeah,
got to get to the top shelf. And you get naughty videos under the counter.
Yeah, that's it.
I remember finding videos in my stepdad's car, and they were unmarked boxes. And my brother put one on. It was called Hot Legs, and we were like, "What?" And we did laugh because they couldn't hide it.
Yeah, well, of course, you're much younger than I am,
as opposed to being porn. I think that's gone way too far, and it was all online. But it used to just be funny.
Yeah. I mean, when I was sort of 13 or 14, there was no such thing as video. It is a photograph in a magazine was about as far as you got, and I can remember when I was very little. Where the war years is either during the last days of the war or the early part of post-war period, is my grandmother and my great aunts, because of course parents were involved in the war in those days, taking me to the local village hall to see what was known as a lantern show. And it would have been some chap with a bunch of slides, and they weren't even called slides in those days. They were called something else. Can't remember. And he would talk about his experiences traveling up the upper reaches of the Thames or something, and and the place was packed, absolutely packed. How times have changed.
Oh, definitely. And the problem is now, I mean, I know we've sort of moved on from sex education, but you've got sites like Pornhub, and they absolutely make women look so degrading, so humiliating, and it's not fun. Like we say soft porn, like your magazines and things. It was a bit of fun, wasn't it? But now I think it's just become so disgusting the way women are treated. And there's also, for me, is a reflection. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and if her counterparts are watching such sites, that's how they're learning how to treat women, which I think is incredibly horrifying.
Yeah.
And and I remember my daughter was watching a show, and this is going back 3 years ago. This was on Netflix, and it was one of the kids in the school was like saying, "Oh, why is your girlfriend not talking to you? Is it because she wouldn't do bottom stuff?" And I was thinking, my daughter's watching this, and they're making that, they're normalizing that. So, you know, I think that they ought to educate students on what is normal, not what is degrading, and that, you know, a normal loving relationship and things like that. So it's everything's just gone way too far, and with the internet, we can't really get back to a level that's just more playful.
No, it's. I totally agree with you. You know, one of the interesting side issues that people never think about is, of course, somebody's got to make these things, and I've worked extensively in Switzerland, particularly shooting documentaries on banks and so on in Zurich. And I worked with a colleague who owned a company called Swiss News, a lovely, lovely man and a lovely family. And we did a lot of work together. But one day, a chap on a bicycle sort of waved to him and stopped. And they very briefly spoke in German, actually. So I didn't know what they were saying. But he said that man has made his living by being a cameraman on porn videos. And he said he now cannot sleep, he can't eat, he's totally mentally screwed up because of what he's seen, which is sort of sickened him to pieces. And it had never occurred to me before that this might have an effect on the people that actually make them. And it's one of those things that in this industry, you know, I've done it all, I've seen it all. Well, I've never made a porn video, but I've met a man who has, and it is a devastating effect.
Absolutely. And so I think if we go back to what Richie, I can't speak this morning, Rishi Sunak said, try to say that with my teeth in, that I do think that there should be an awareness, like stranger danger, but I think as the children are reaching puberty, I think it should, like a life learning lesson of what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, what is normal and healthy, what's unhealthy. And I think that's quite a key, you know, what are the boundaries? Because right now with the internet, there are no boundaries. And if people can get onto the dark web, that's even more terrifying because people get killed. So that, in terms of, you know, sex education, educate them what's right and wrong. In terms of anatomy, I mean, I did have a fallout with my sister once because I saw this article about a breakfast cereal that was, you know, like you have Cheerios. Well, this was things like you have your a cereal shaped like a uterus and other shapes of your anatomy in your, like, to do with educating children, young adults on periods. So the idea was this cereal's red, so that when you put the milk in, the milk turns red, and you could talk about periods over breakfast. And I was just like, if anyone had ever suggested to me that I would want to eat cereal that reminded me of having a period and talk about it whilst I was eating, I would have thrown up. And my sister thought that was absolutely fine and natural. I was like, it's so wrong. That's so wrong.
Is she older or younger than you?
She's younger than me. So I'm still traumatized because my stepdad told me that the brown Rice Krispies, the burnt ones, was mouse poo. Now I can't eat Rice Krispies now because I think I'm eating mouse poo. There's a brown one in there. So imagine having your cereal reminding you of your menstruation cycle. I was just be traumatized for life.
Just awful. Philip has joined us. He obviously is back from taking his wife to work.
Philip.
Hi, Susie.
Perhaps intrigued by the conversation. Can I, just before we go to Philip, Can I just tell you, perhaps I still, to some extent, view sex a bit tongue in cheek, if you'll excuse the expression, because now this is an absolute medical fact that people with Parkinson's have an obsession, either with gambling or with sex. And for years, I used to go in to my previous Parkinson's nurse, whom I got along extremely well with, and I would sit down and I would say, Amanda, you'll be relieved to know that I haven't been to a casino in months.
Excellent.
Yeah, knowing you, Keith, you're probably the only Parkies man who is obsessed with both.
Yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, how are you, Philip?
Yeah, I'm okay. Slightly hairy drive this morning. A lot more traffic than normal, and some very fast oncoming vehicles, which I just about got the judgment right to make a tricky right turn, but my wife went, ooh. Yeah. There we are. But
hearing you both from this end.
Say that again, Susie. What is that?
Yeah.
What is that, Susie?
Hang on a
Yeah, you moved to a place where we're not hearing you.
Well, she's on mute. Oh no.
For some reason, my volume's up, but I can't hear very well at all. I can't really hear what you're saying, so I don't know if it's an issue on my phone.
Well, we're hearing you okay when you stay in that one place. You're coming through loud and clear. But anyway, Philip has undoubtedly heard a little bit of our conversation. Philip, much is made about the papers this morning, is that Rishi Sunak is going to ban sex education to children under 12, and particularly monitoring and keeping a lid on sex education to under 9s, the gender issues. How does that strike you?
Well, firstly, Keith, I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was sex education to the under 9s is going to go out, and gender advice or education. Anyway, obviously, I've misunderstood. How does it? Well, can I answer it with a question? In your view, is there a link between sex education to very young kids and them accessing or being vulnerable to explicit material? I don't personally see the link.
Well, I'll let Susie answer that in a minute, but my own view is that if you start to talk about sex to a 6-year-old, that by the time he's 10, it becomes a norm, and then when things become a norm, that's when other things start to become extreme. So I think what Susie said is, when she was at school, she was a kid. She wanted to stay a kid and not be taught too much about sex. And I think I would go along with that. I mean,
yes. Yes, I agree with you. You've put me right, really, or you've enlightened me. Yes, I take your point about it's too young, and it's moving kids on too quickly, and probably in the wrong direction. No, I get that. I think by the time that in my view, there has to be some advice given to primary school kids as they leave for senior school, because they won't get sex education at senior school. I don't think, but certainly before they leave for senior school, there should be maybe a year for 10 to 11-year-olds to have even just a fleeting glimpse, as it were, of the subject.
I think back to when I was at school, and I wasn't taught anything until I was in secondary school, so probably about 11 or 12, and it was in biology, so it was very much in the context of biology and a diagram of a non sort of, well, it was male or female diagram, but not faces or anything. It was an outline of a person, and then a diagram of your anatomy and the labels that we had. We had to learn what different parts were and what their biological names were.
Yeah.
So in terms of just what that was, rather than actually intercourse, and that I can't quite remember. I think they actually had a video or something, and we had to have our parents' consent to watch this video. And I remember us all coming out going, oh, horrified, like, really?
Well,
that's how you make babies?
That's the point. Kids of that age, I remember particularly Oliver, my son, when he was that age, these sort of things horrified him. They just find it crushingly embarrassing and gross. I remember him saying that the thought of it was gross.
That's how I found out why my mum and my stepdad's bedroom door was always locked on a Sunday morning. We were never allowed in. Then the penny dropped there, and I was like, "Oh, that's what's happening."
Philip, you would remember. I think, even though you're much younger than I am, but the News of the World, the dear old News of the World, which no longer exists, was the paper that you read on a Sunday to find out what was happening about sex cases in the courts. And they always had this lovely phrase, and they were intimate.
Yes. Well, we always called News of the World News of the Screws.
Yes.
And I remember there's a very famous cricket cartoon whereby you've got W.G. Grace, all the famous cricketers, one of whom was a reverend. He became the Bishop of Liverpool in the end. And he's depicted in this cartoon, and he's reading the News of the World. And then he's the one in the dog collar. It's very witty.
Yeah.
But,
that was David Shepherd, was it?
Yeah, David Shepherd.
David Shepherd, yes.
Yeah. Am I just saying?
I just remember just being drip fed, and you just learn about things gradually. It's a bit like when you find out. I can't probably say about good old Santa Claus, but it's a bit when you find these things out. It's at an age that's appropriate, and you can get your head around it. I think is that, rather than go, "Ooh, that's gross."
No,
it's a gradual learning, drip fed, as you evolve and grow yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Keith, I was going to ask you, are you or I going to send Prideaux the link?
No, you send it to him, because he's going to be your guest, really. I shall lurk on the sidelines. And Susie, this is a fascinating topic, and I think we should return to it one morning, because to me also it shows the Tories are beginning to lurch back towards the right, after, as Harry Attenborough has said, is sometimes a downright socialist. But I have one of those rare things this morning, doctor's appointment. So we have to end with Stuart bang on 10:30, which means we need to get him started bang on. And so I'm going to get Philip to get John Prideaux to start bang on if he can. So thank you very much for coming to us from Tunbridge, and good luck to your daughter with her O levels. Is it O levels?
GCSEs.
GCSEs, but yeah, equivalent.
Yeah, what I would call an O level. Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll
All
talk
right.
to you
Well,
soon.
lovely to see you both. Yeah, I'm
And
off to Scotland
lovely
tomorrow,
to see you.
And you. You both have a lovely day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Right, Philip. I'm sorry that we're on a tight schedule this morning, but as you know, it's almost a year since I've seen a doctor, and one way or another, it's just so difficult nowadays. This is the one thing I do not wish to miss.
No, you won't miss it. Not at my hands, anyway.
No, certainly not.
Just keep a rein on Stuart. That's all I can say.
Yes. Well, I have warned him that we've got to end at 10:30 precisely, and actually the chief of staff is very good. Declan takes him by the scruff of the neck.
Well, I am.
Goes him across the pub. So anyway, it's good to see you as always, and John, as ever, this is becoming a very popular spot because people are beginning to worry about artificial intelligence, and of course, this past week they've just posed the question: is it possible that AI would develop to the stage where it would start to think in a cleverer way than mankind? And
Well,
which it would take over.
One of the subjects I'm going to raise with Prideaux is precisely that, because there's a brand new bot being produced that can think ahead, interpret emotions from facial expressions, you name it.
Wow.
So, yeah, we'll get on to that when he turns up.
Right.
He's definitely at home because I saw him putting the bins out. That's when you know that's when you know that Prideaux exists locally. Is when he puts the bins out.
Bins out.
And then he moans about it.
Well,
anyway,
actually, on the way in on the Red Devil, is I have to weave my way through these green bags that people put out.
Yes.
Because they don't think that the pavements are going to be used at 6:30 in the morning, and as a consequence, they tend to be a little sloppy. So I have to go like that, narrowly avoiding going onto the road. So putting the bins out is a time-honored activity with a lot of people.
Well, it is. I mean, on the street where we live, we're lucky because we've got a grass verge between the curtilage of our properties and the pavement. So, I mean, for example, I use 2 wheelie bins. There's the recycling bin, which is every fortnight. And that helps me remember when Prideaux will be on, because it's the Wednesday fortnight that I do recycling. And I've also got an old black bin that quite a long time ago they revamped the old black bins and they left a load of old ones just by the wayside, and I took one and I use it for the general garbage, because normally we get the gulls and the magpies here, and they just rip the bags to bits.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, it's the magpies that are the worst. I have to say, damn things. Anyway.
Yes, and yes, in a funny sort of way, a magpie is quite an attractive bird.
Yeah, quite so.
Yes,
You're going to lose me for a minute because it looks like the link hasn't gone. Hang on.
all right. Well,
Well, it has now.
Philip is trying to bring in John Prideaux, our expert
Yeah,
on
well,
artificial intelligence.
I texted him to say I'd sent the link and it hadn't arrived. What happens with my system sometimes is that something that's been sent sits in the outbox for far too long.
Yes.
And you have to go into the outbox and give it a kick up the bum, as it were.
Yes.
For it to actually be sent. And that's what's just happened. Anyway. So
I don't think that the internet email is that reliable anyway.
No.
My own theory is that they never thought that they would have the volume and that the system actually overloads from time to time. It delays sending stuff. Yeah.
Well, the classic example, which I know still exists, is the World Wide Web. When America wakes up, the whole system is overloaded worldwide.
I'm sure that's right.
The minute America gets onto the web en masse, as you can imagine how many people that would be.
Oh, yes.
You know, the strain on the system is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely huge.
And yet they keep on inventing new things to add.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yes, well, I'm sure he'll be on very soon now.
Yes. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He was.
Good morning, John.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Yes, hello, Prid. You were very noisy with the bins this morning.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, we seemed. It's interesting. We had more in the normal rubbish, but a lot less in the recycling for some reason.
So you've cut down on your drinking then?
Maybe that was it. Or I did it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, some interesting stuff I picked up on in the last week and a bit. The English women's cricket coach now produces match simulations to study the opposition and learn how to tactically win a game against certain countries using AI.
Indeed.
And AI is being used to think up new television programs. They call it content creation with generative AI.
Well, I think we've done our own thing on that, haven't we? With the Triffid and the scooter.
Well, I've been waiting to show Keith the scooter, but I thought it would spoil your fun.
Oh, well, I think because I think he probably got a glimpse of it because I think I shared it as well. But I have done a little bit more work on that. But it's the interesting feedback really is how slow it is to do. You know, it takes a fair bit of time, and also I can see with these sort of TV creative things, it almost does it not deliberately, but by accident, because you do things, you ask for things, and it gives you something slightly different.
Yeah. Can you see that, Keith?
Yes, indeed, I can. Yes, it's very, 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 very like. The wheels are a little bit bigger, but other than that, and I don't have a shopping basket, but. Other than that, it's very, very good likeness, indeed.
Maybe that's the next model, the next one up. I mean, we don't want it to be too accurate because otherwise people might recognize you when you go down the street.
Well,
but listen,
actually, I put up on one of the local a thing called Nextdoor, which is supposed to be a localized app, a chat app, and I put my hat, and I said, "Say hello to the man in the hat," and in fact, people do. I get a lot of comment on the hat. Not much on the wearer, but a lot on the hat.
Yeah, well, I think perhaps you need an AI hat choosing tool, that can
Yes.
help you choose the perfect hat.
And today, a Ukrainian girl called Olga discovered that Chinese social media and also in Russia had AI faked her face and voice and was portraying her as a Russian, promoting Russia on Chinese social media, speaking Mandarin, which is a language she has no idea about.
Mm.
And she said she found that really very spooky. And then ChatGPT have brought out the GPT-4o.
Oh, I know.
Which interprets emotions, solves equations, and he's really quite chatty, using a very soft female American voice. Now, I wouldn't find that attractive at all, personally, but that's what it speaks in.
And good luck with detecting your emotions.
You know how inscrutable I am, John.
I know. It'd be really tough.
I keep things close to my chest. I don't say anything to anybody.
Yeah. I was thinking, what's the bigger picture? Because Gemini, Google have announced their new, like a day after OpenAI, Google announced they've got a new version as well. So they're all battling it out. And if one makes an announcement, the other one has to make an announcement too. So they bring out all these things that they've got in beta and test and so on. But I felt it all felt a bit, I don't know, a bit trivial, a bit sort of, it's all entertainment, lifestyle, fun stuff. And also Google seemed to be going towards tying AI up with your phone and with you. And they've got this new word they're using called multimodal. So it's able to, look at your face and see how you're feeling whilst scanning around you to see where you may have left your glasses, or being sort of aware on all these different dimensions of sound, vision, and then trying to be there for you as like your guardian angel, or your the parrot on your shoulder, perhaps.
Your AI comfort blanket. Yeah.
And it just all feels a bit sort of fuzzy and fluffy. I might be wrong. It could be that everyone's lives will change as a result. But I don't know. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Because the other thing, if they're monitoring your whole life and your every movement, every blink of your eye, makes it that they can then use that information to target products to you.
Well, exactly.
So there's an ulterior motive in these things, I think.
Well, there's a reason and a motive for pretty much everything anybody does, isn't there? And that's a very valid example, I think. There has to be an end to it. An objective, I mean.
Yeah. But
anyway, I've mentioned a few things I've picked up on. Any others that have struck you, John?
No, those announcements were the main ones. There was also I missed it, but I was told about it. It was on, I think it was on BBC. There was some spokesman from the government talking about AI and regulation. and it was the same sort of story as we've said before about they're not really. It feels like they don't really want to interfere, and they're leaning more towards self-regulation, which we know doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't. But you foresaw this from our earliest programs on this, that particularly the Brits and the Europeans are very reticent.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
am I right that in the States they're a bit more bold, a bit bolder with it?
I don't know. Yeah, they're certainly talking a bolder story, but I haven't seen any evidence of them actually doing anything.
No.
They haven't brought in any legislation. You know, they've set up bodies and departments and think tanks and all of that, but not really done it. The only one, the EU have done something on the legislative front, but again, it seems rather weak, and they're just categorizing products, and then those that fall into the highest risk category will then be potentially subject to controls, but they haven't got as far as saying what they would be or planning what they would be, from what I've seen anyway. But at least they've got some legislation over the line, so they're moving. They're probably ahead of everybody else in that sense. But I suppose in some ways you've got to if you can build in a framework, then you can start refining it. So I think there's a positive on that front.
Yeah. But it still doesn't talk about what is there to be breached or sanctions, does it?
No, exactly.
So it's just, well, as the phrase you use, these are like think tanks. They're kind of quangos.
Yeah, they say things like we're worried about it and we're looking into it, and we need to be careful, blah blah blah, but not actually really seeming to do anything.
No, and the think tanks will be soaking up money and probably using AI to help them think.
Yeah, and when you think, I don't know if you remember the figures we talked about last time, that the likes of Microsoft and Google are investing. They're the budgets of small nations. They're
yes, I'm sure.
It's. I think it was Google's spent sort of half the British military defense budget in 1 year. It's just mind-boggling what they're throwing at this.
Yeah.
Having said all that, I have been having a bit of fun. Well, the to be continued story. Well, it continues. So we've moved on from the grey scooter. We've put the red scooter. So if I try and share, do the usual. It's always never quite as straightforward as.
This is the bit that Keith looks forward to this every fortnight. You can see the look on his face.
I mean, it's quite a dangerous moment as well for live broadcasting, because I could be, I could share anything, couldn't I? So,
well, that's what we want you to do. That's the whole point.
I'm going to present this. Press the present button. Press the share screen, and then yes, it only lets you share a screen, doesn't it? It's not an application. So let me just get ready, and then Phil, you'll see this before anyway, won't you? So you can. All right, here we go. Well, there is a lost. No, not that one. Not that one. Here we go. Right.
Yeah, that's coming up now.
It's coming up. So viewers, be ready to be entertained. Let's hear the sound. Oh, it's going very slowly. What's happening? Oh, that's not so good, is it? It's stuck. So after all this,
is there any way of rebooting it, John?
all this technology, yeah, let's. I'll try a different one. Oh, wait a minute! It started again.
Print about.
Without the sound. Here we go.
Normal Wednesday morning. Scooter Keith was buying pastries.
Notice the hat.
But there's a rival in town.
Uh-oh.
Very good, John.
There you go.
I love the hat on the seat. The hat on the seat as opposed to the cat in the hat.
Yes. Yeah.
John, you're very clever. Actually one of the movies on, I think it's called XTV or something, which is the streaming version for ITV. Is they were showing? Is it Drango?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly like that little character that you've created. If Drango can make a fortune, are we onto something here?
Well, you know, you never know. I think it's a new genre because it's very. It's not very sophisticated. The actual the result is quite basic, you know, and you have to. I found it really hard mixing things to get that. It took me a lot of trouble to get that hat onto that. Yeah, it took me. Although to be fair, it was a lack of knowledge as well. So now I know how to do it. It'll be easier next time.
Yeah, but
the Trifid scooter was a complete accident. So I was trying to get the Trifid on the scooter, and instead of doing that, it created the Trifid scooter. So that was quite nice. So I thought I'd incorporate that. But yeah, it does take a while. And I use a tool called Leonardo. There's quite a few others around. Pika is another one I tried, and they're all a bit different. They all do it in a slightly different way, have a different sort of look and feel to it. But they still, at the moment, are still fairly basic. So the other thing I looked at in this sort of area was you mentioned the 15th century monk, I believe. I had a note. It just said 15th century monk. I couldn't remember quite what you said about it. And I remember you saying you had a bit of trouble trying to create one. So
yes, I asked, is it GB? Whichever version, the fairly basic version, to create a medieval monk detective.
Right.
Which it did. Now this was text, but illustrating it was a bit of a problem. Oh my goodness me! Look at that.
I didn't use the word detective, but I did try and put this fella outside Lewes Castle. I can't remember if that's quite what Lewes Castle looks like, but it's. But then we. Oh, wait a minute! No, I don't want that one. Then where is he? I tried to animate it. That's as good as it could manage. Just the background moving around.
You got him moving, yeah.
Yeah. So that was what. So that was using that was Bing. I used Microsoft Copilot to do that one. If can I switch to the other one? No, I think I'll switch to the other one, and then you can. This is an alternative. Oh, where has she gone? I think I have to. There we go. Sorry, muttering to myself.
Carry on muttering.
I mutter to my next monk. Here we are. So this is he's walking away.
He's had enough of us, John.
I thought this was a little bit more sort of realistic.
Yes, that's very impressive. Gosh.
So the challenge is to try and replicate the same monk. Can be done. I've found there are ways to do it, but it's not always that reliable. It's like my little Triffid creature. I've got some very similar versions. I've got probably about 20 now, different versions of that character, but they're all slightly different. So you should see.
This is so Prido. Brilliant. Just
yeah,
brilliant.
I've sort of entered this new world.
What Sarah must think. I mean, she catches you looking at footage of car parks. Now you've got 23 different Triffids. I mean, God. I
know it's a bit sad. I'll show you the tool that I'm using to do this, because you'll get a feel of what my life. Let me just share this one. It's quite funny, really. Now I think of it. Where have you gone?
That what you've just done is very Tommy Cooper. Who, one of his favourite lines was, "I can't help but laughing because I know the punchline."
Yeah, I do that. I start laughing at jokes before I've told them. Yeah. And I just looked at what I've been doing. But anyway, let's share it with you. Let's. It's like a therapy, I think. So this is. Can you see that one? So this is my generation, my history here, my generation history. Green hands. Been trying to get green hands going. I've been trying to get scooter brakes and green hands on a scooter brake. That took up loads of pictures. And if I look at my previous generations, this is what's been. This has been my world.
Wow.
Last 24 hours. All sorts. People, red hats.
I think we've got enough here to create a 30-minute drama, don't you?
It would have to be lots of different characters all doing something different somehow, yes. All joined together in a story. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, looking at the bigger picture, it feels like if you were a professional trying to produce animation videos, I don't think you'd use these tools. You'd use the established methods. I think you might perhaps just use a little bit of AI to generate a new image for you that you might then use. But it's quite it's entertaining. So there's a good entertainment value.
Yes.
Well, there certainly
is John, if you will actually stitch together 5 minutes worth of your creations and send it to me, I'll write a script for it.
Okay. Well,
it is actually referring to something quite mundane, I suppose, but the traditional way of doing news is that you write a script and, as they would say, lay the video onto it. In fact, some people use the word paint. You paint the script to the video. Martin Bell was famous, particularly in the Balkan Wars, is for doing it the other way around. He would actually shoot the stuff and then live put the script to it based on what he'd just seen or experienced. So let's use the Bell formula. Is you do the pictures and I'll do the script.
Okay, it's a deal. I think you could use this to build a storyboard, which you could then pass on to a proper filmmaker to then turn it into something. But you could even with these simple sort of, well, they're simple. They're very. What's going on behind the scenes is still incredibly clever, but it does spark sort of creative ideas, and it does things that you're not quite expecting.
I'm quite keen that John Prideaux will actually come up with a formula that is innovative, that nobody has ever done before, and that fits in with the ethos of Mirador. Nobody's ever done this before. So let's keep going with the Prideaux formula.
You can advertise that you're AI powered. Mirador is AI enabled.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly artificial.
Yeah. I thought about maybe for next time, but I'd need to just think about this, whether I want to do it, is to do a version of me. So upload a picture of me and then get me to say something that I haven't actually said, and see how.
That's going to be difficult, finding something you've never actually said.
I'm sure there are some things. There are some of the things that. No, that's not true. That's not true, Phil, because I know that some of the things that you've said, I've never said.
No. I think if you said things that I've said, you'd be in deep trouble, Mr. P.
You somehow managed to get away with it.
Yeah, I've no idea how or why. I should have been ditched onto the street years ago, but hey.
Yeah. So I might have a play around with that next time, or maybe it'll be a cartoon version or something like that. And see if we can.
Well, I'm very impressed, John. Very impressed indeed, and I am resisting handing it on to another expert, because I think that what's happening is, as we lay down challenges, you're finding the learning curve is quite useful to you. Each time that we do one of these programs, as you learn how to do something that you've never done before. So let's keep it in the family and see whether we can come out, even if it takes a year.
See where we end up. See if we can detect Phil's emotions. There we go.
Absolutely. Is something we can send to MGM or something.
It would have to be a pretty clever machine to sense my emotions.
Yeah, well, this GPT 4.0. Let's give it a go. See if we can.
Yes.
See if we can flirt with you.
What, with Keith or me?
Well, we could try. I could help you both out. Maybe you could flirt with each other.
God help us.
Exactly. And he butters me up all the time anyway. Absolute, stuff and nonsense.
Well, it is perhaps with this system, I can tell whether it's working.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, John, the 4.0, how would you access that?
Well, you can online just through your browser. You can go, if you just type in Chat GPT, it'll take you there, and you can. I think it's. I think you opt to use it. I can give it a go right now. Yeah,
so you don't have to pay.
GPT 4.0 now available, and you just click on it, and there it is. It's you log in. I've got an account, so I just log in, and then you start asking questions. I mean, it's the style. Apparently, I haven't tried it yet, but the style is a bit more fluid in its conversation. Yeah, more chatty. I think if you're using it on the phone, then you have to give it. If you want to use the emotion detectors, then you need to allow it to access your camera and that kind of thing. So
I've
you
just
can
got
talk.
to leave.
Okay, so you can talk to it, and as you talk to it, it will go, "Oh, you're looking a little bit down today. You know, can I cheer you up with a joke?"
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, just on the serious side, I saw a little note during the week that suggested that this latest AI is people are getting concerned because it could develop into something that would be able to outthink mankind. Is that a real danger, John, or is it just speculation?
I mean, I suppose you've got to break down what does that really mean? Certainly, I think thinking is a thing that AI doesn't really do. It gives the impression of thinking. I think this is an important distinction. Like when you're chatting to a chat GPT, it gives the impression that it's a thinking thing, but it's merely mathematically and statistically putting words together from a huge database that it's been given, which may not have all the knowledge ever. It'll only have, some of human knowledge in that. It's also historic. I think there's a trend. It is moving towards being smarter, being better at appearing to be thinking. I don't see quite how that's a big threat. It sounds like a threat, it's going to think for mankind, but it's still humans that have got to decide how they use it, what they do with the information it gives them. And I suppose if we decide to put AI in charge of decisions and start creating and legislation which we're happy to accept, let's imagine a parliament full of thinking robots, and would we go, yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah, that's a good idea,
It's far superior, yeah.
let's let them do that. They'd probably do a better job, wouldn't they? But you'd have to accept that. Somebody would have to decide that that's a good thing to do, and we'll allow our police force and our courts to be guided by whatever comes out of this artificial think tank, this artificial thinking.
Yes.
Who knows?
I mean, I suppose this sort of scenario that I would think of it's just basic is that we develop AI to put into cars, and then eventually it got to the point where you'd be driving along and it would suddenly say, "Here, let me drive." I mean, is that a possibility? Or?
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, I think it could be let's say you suddenly have a heart attack while you're driving your car, and it goes, I better take over, and I'll find a spot and I'll pull over and park safely. So there are ways that the car taking over can be positive. If the car says, oh, right, you're driving perfectly well, but I'm going to take over now, and I'm going to go and, drive along the pavements just for a laugh. That would be a bad.
Yeah.
But you have to remember it's humans that implement these things in the first place. So you'd have to allow that to happen. You'd have to decide that was a good idea. I suppose the other scenario is that, well, regardless of what we decide, the cars start thinking for themselves anyway. and ignoring the instruction that says don't drive on this, there are people on it, and it goes, oh, I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, is the presumption that everybody in charge of the development is wants to see mankind flourish is I think with the recent moguls manipulating social media, is that not everybody thinks like that.
no, exactly, which is why you need the legislation and the sanctions against anybody who doesn't use it responsibly. So and there's a battle between the big tech companies who don't want legislation because it hinders it just hinders them, and the government who represent us who need to control it, or we would like them to control it. But they haven't cottoned on to that yet, I don't think.
Yeah, it won't be long.
Well, I suppose, that's the thing, isn't it? It has to be, the pressure has to come from the people in the end. We have to insist on it. We have to vote for the people that we believe might support that view, and educate people so that they understand the risks, but also understand the how you can control it and what can be done, and not just either be there seem to be two camps. There's the very afraid and the very positive, the very optimistic.
Now, you more than anybody I know deeply into artificial intelligence. If you had to do a SWOT analysis of the current situation, how would you rate sort of opportunities, threats, weaknesses, etc.?
I think it's probably what I've said before. Really, but the strengths I see in particularly the medical world. There's a few. Again this week. There's a few articles came out around positive things happening in that space with AI, because there's so much data that already exists that it can use as well. So that the strengths are doing great things for health, well-being, just running the world more smoothly, detecting things that we can't detect, whether that's from asteroid impact to cancer to traffic accidents, growing more efficient crops, tackling climate. There's a vast amount of things that it can be helpful for. Weaknesses, I think maybe things like lack. It's sort of misunderstood. There's a general. It can be misunderstood and misinterpreted, and then not exploited in the way it should be. I think the strengths and opportunities are all fairly similar. Threats falls into the wrong hands and people use it for malicious purposes, crime, political corruption. I think those are the tangible things that are the threats. These bigger, it's going to take over the world threats. That's a bit of a distraction. It's the immediate threats that we need to be looking at. Things like the deep fakes and the misuse of the tools. That's my quick SWOT.
Yes, and I think that's very useful because it is it's still a huge percentage of the population say, "What's AI?" But since it's creeping up, on the outside lane towards the winning post, without the front runners realizing it's there, it needs a certain amount of explanation. And you're giving it very articulately, if I may say so, because you are cautious, but cautiously optimistic, and that means that we're understanding things as you take us along. You're almost running a class on AI on this program in the most entertaining way. I think that's very useful.
Yeah, hopefully it's helpful and useful to people. It's useful to me as well. it's a good. It gets me thinking at least once every fortnight.
He only comes on, Keith, because of your flattery. He doesn't get this at home.
Yeah.
So that's why he comes on. If he could, he'd be on once a week. But he hasn't got the time.
Yeah, Phil is very aware of the miserable life that I lead.
It is utterly miserable. It's gutter level. Unhappiness, discontent. Oh God. I don't know how Sarah survives. I really don't. But there we are.
Yeah. So it's this is what keeps me going.
No, the truth is, what keeps you going are your lovely grandchildren and wife and your allotment. You have an allotment, don't you?
Do have an allotment? Yes. There's no AI involved yet.
No. Well, I've seen either or both of you go up to the allotment, and it looks pretty basic and manual to me. I don't.
It is, yeah. But I get. Yeah, Sarah does everything.
Yes. Well, that's always been your. It must be a terrible burden to have a wife who does everything for you. I can only fantasize about such things.
But we are collecting data though. So we last year, because we started it last year, so we mainly grew courgettes. That was pretty much all we got time to put in. Other things we tried weren't really successful. We had a few squashes. Well, the courgette crop was very successful, and we kept a record. So it was we had about 18 kilos of courgettes.
Now, could you reduce that to about 12 kilos and have some of them vegetable marrows?
Not too many got away. Yeah, one or two sort of sneaked up on us and got a bit too big, but generally we kept on top of it. So we've got that data. In fact, we had to rummage around the recycling bin yesterday because we realised we'd thrown the calendar away that had all the numbers on. So we fished it out, and we've so we'll be comparing and contrasting last year's with this year's, and so that could be the beginning.
I mean, talking about these things is in my dotage. It evokes memories from way back, and I remember one of the favourite things that my grandmother would make during the war, even though I was quite small, was vegetable marrow stuffed with mince and baked
with cheese on top.
She never
white sauce. You made white sauce. My mum used to do that.
Yes, white sauce, but also because the mince could have gravy, she would also douse it in gravy. So they were wonderful dishes. And when you start to talk about courgettes, and our gardening expert says that a courgette can grow into a vegetable marrow, it starts to evoke wonderful images for me, and memories for that matter. I start to smell these things, because Parkinson's, you lose your sense of smell. So imagining these things is now you've got me smelling a vegetable marrow stuffed with mince and doused in gravy.
I can see the next AI animation coming up.
Well, you're certainly doing me the world of good, that's for sure. Seriously, are there things that AI can do in terms of helping you with your allotment?
Well, I think on a big scale in farming, it's definitely there are definitely tools being used to optimize crop yields and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think in all those things, winemaking, I think I've seen some things happening there. There's all sorts of niche areas. Ship navigation was another one I saw, which was so optimizing shipping routes and reducing fuel. By they were claiming up to sort of 10-15% just by looking at the weather, tides, all this massive information that's available, and going, yeah, you need to go just nudge a couple of degrees to the right, and it'll just plot a better course for you, which is less you use less fuel. So and that pays for the investment in all of the technology to do that. Yeah, there's lots of things. So farming, I think perhaps we'll have a focus on farming and AI.
I think that might be very useful, because one of the headlines in the newspapers this morning is how much we are using food banks, and apparently in Britain we're using them far more than other nations. How much will AI alter the food bank scene, or will it? So yes, I think that would be very useful.
Reducing waste, all those sorts of things is AI can be applied to, because it's the analysis of large data sets, really. Anything that's got huge complex data, so anything to do with weather, fluid dynamics, river flows, tides, AI can just look at it all and spot things which we can't.
I mean, you're opening my eyes every week, every other week, John. I mean, every time that we finish a program like this, it leaves me with 1,000 questions to be resolved in the next. So I think this could be like Coronation Street. In 20 years' time, it's still with the Prido AI.
That's hilarious, Anchorman. That's absolutely hilarious.
Well, Coronation AI.
Look, he's a professionally trained actor, so he needs to be in a soap opera at least. So here we are.
Well, I mean, that is I think that he could play the part of my detective Monk.
Oh yes.
Yes. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, "Oh yeah, I can see you in Silent Witness."
Yes.
I said, "What is it? That's the dead body."
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to cut this slightly short, simply because I've got a doctor's appointment today, which I've been trying to get for almost a year, and I like hen's teeth, and I don't want to miss it. But John, fascinating as always, and the images that you're creating, I really think that we can have a concert one day, or we could even start our own MGMA. And
well, I'll keep up with the I'll keep up with the research. I can put it down to I can get some tax rebate for carrying out R&D. So there you go.
Oh, well, there we are. There are benefits. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
All right then. See you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Okay,
Cheers.
look forward
Bye.
to it. Good. There we go. Now, I know that I'm going to end this session because we're going to go with Stuart any minute now. Okay. Toodle pip.